Colin Murphy is my name, as my colleague Emma McLaughlin is here as well. Emma will introduce herself in a minute. We're going to share the presentation a little bit this evening. So I'm lead tutor in Portobello Institute for blended learners. So apart from delivering some modules myself, I also act kind of as a support in the background to some of the other blended learning tutors. So we're mostly involved in teaching at the weekends when the blended learning courses are delivered. So the things we're going to run through this evening, we're going to look through some of the courses available to you. And I guess these probably won't or may not spark an awful lot of queries initially, in the sense that a lot of the more detail in relation to these courses is actually on the Portobello Institute website itself. So in terms of detailed modules and so on. So I'm guessing that the queries tonight might arise more around the kind of the mode of delivery and what it's like to engage with the course and so on and so forth. But we'll try and give you a little bit of a brief overview of the courses on offer. If you're logged on here tonight, you're probably got one or other of these in particular in mind. So we'll see if we can add illuminate things a little bit. So we have a couple of polls, I think, running as well, inviting you to share with us your interest in which particular course that you're here for tonight. And what we'll do as well, you can type away in the chat as you go. If we can find a way to unmute you later on, we might have an actual conversation as well. But what we'll do is we'll do a Q&A at the end when we're through the presentation, and deal with any queries that arise. Anything that we don't have an immediate answer to for you this evening, we'll take a details that. Joanna Shaw is on here as well from our admissions team. Sorry, Joe, should have introduced you at the beginning. She's waving at you. And Joe will come back to you if any particular queries that we don't, to say, have an immediate answer for you this evening. We'll take a note of that and we'll come back to you ASAP with answers. So again, little polls here. I think you've got an option to enter some of these polls and express your area of interest, whether it is that you are interested in going down the blended learning route, or whether it is that you are interested in a full-time, so daytime, weekday type approach. Benefits and pros and cons, I suppose, to each aspect. And some of you, obviously, if you're working full-time, then your blended learning is probably the way to go for you, and maybe the only option to you or available to you. So after your studies, then we're interested in where you want to go with this. And again, some of you might not know this. I mean, it's not unusual to pick an area of interest, decide you need to upskill or want to upskill, add to your qualifications, or embark on a brand new kind of, you might be first time in third level. And it might be at this point, completing it and graduating seems a long way down the track. So, this question might be a bit of a challenge, in the sense that the answer for a lot of people to this one might be, I don't know, and ask me again when I'm nearer the end. But it's worth considering your plans, thinking about it. Some of you will start an undergrad program with us with a particular view to picking up on a master's down the track. So that's probably a continue my studies approach. Others will just want to use it to enhance their career and get involved in practice off the back of their studies. So the first one I'm going to delve into tonight is BSc in Sports Therapy, University of Essex. Are the accrediting body or the awarding body for this. Runs over 3 years, and as I say, there's a lot more detail on the website itself. So I'm going to give you kind of just a flavour of this. Year one, there's a couple of baseline modules here, including an anatomy and biomechanics module, physiology modules, and a foundations module, which is really sort of the history behind sports therapy and massage therapy and manual therapy, and how they all fit into the general landscape in terms of careers. And then obviously the anatomy one and the physiology one are going to be vital to your progress through that course, understanding how the body works, and understanding how function and dysfunction might arise. There's a sports research skills module then in year one, and if you look across the line, you'll see that one develops into a sports science research methods in year two, and culminates in a sports science and therapy dissertation in year three. So there's a research team embedded in all of our modules, in fact, or in all of our courses. that runs across the 3 years and gradually introduces you to the idea of research, and then builds on those skills in year 2, and then culminates, as I say, in producing a dissertation in year 3. And you'll see that pattern in most of the courses. In year 2 of this one, then it builds on, again, I suppose the way to think about these is each subsequent year either gets a little bit more specific in certain areas and definitely gets a bit more detailed. So as you build your knowledge as you go through the course over first year, second year, and third year. And it's very important in not just in this particular course, but indeed in all the courses, to really get the baseline stuff under control. So get your first year stuff really well learned and well mastered, so that you build onto a solid foundation as you move through the years on the course. So I'm not going to dwell on those sort of specific ones individually. Included in the BSc in sports therapy, there's 230 hours of supervised experience over the 3 years. There's a student clinic run in the college to give you a chance to practice your skills under supervision. Ultimately, the degree course is accredited by the Society of Sports Therapists in the UK. And throughout your studies, you'll be a registered student of the University of Essex. And they will give you your graduate award at the end. And then after that, again, looking down the track, some people don't want to look so far ahead, or some people have a master plan that's over a number of years. You can ultimately look to become a physiotherapist off the back of the sports therapy graduation or the sports therapy qualification by pursuing a master's, either in some Irish colleges or some UK colleges. And these are the ones that have access routes specifically off the back of this sports therapy degree course. So that's worth bearing in mind if that's where you want to go with this ultimately. The BSc in Sports and Exercise Science. So this is one of our other university partners, Liverpool John Moores University, a very highly regarded sports department, Liverpool John Moores, with an international reputation. And again, similar to the sports therapy degree, this one has a kind of a foundation stage. If you like, first year is about very much kind of introductory, and there's some elements of crossover sometimes between. You might find that there are some modules that are common maybe to more than one course, or there's certainly areas of them that are very similar. So, for example, this one also has a biomechanics module in year 1, where the sports therapy one has an anatomy and biomechanics module. There are physiological module in this one as well, and then there's a psychology dimension here to this one. So looking at I suppose sports psychology, or sort of ordinary psychology, I suppose that I said, and then sports psychology specifically. So how are athletes and so on affected, and how is their performance affected by the psychology behind it. There are some elements within it. Actually, I skipped it on the sports therapy one. Sports therapy one looks a bit at psychology as well, and probably more in the area of the psychology of sports injury, and how do athletes respond when injured, and how does that affect them and affect their rehab and their recovery and so on. So again, as I said, similar to the first one, year 1, important to get those modules under control, get a good understanding of them, and then build on them through second year and on to third year. And again, you'll see the research stream, if you like, running through this again. Sports science research methods in years 1 and 2, and then sports research methods and dissertation in year 3. So again, that's something that sometimes people find a challenge. Some of you may come to this with an existing undergraduate degree or qualification in some other area, in which case you'd have been exposed to academic research before. For those whom it's first time around, that module takes a bit of work and a bit of getting used to in terms of how academic research is conducted. So a bit of effort required in getting to grips with that module, or with those modules over the 3 years. Sport and exercise science. So what's that all about? So sports science is working in a variety of areas in sports industries with athletes and coaches and governing bodies and so on. And also now increasingly with sports technology companies in terms of wearable technology and GPS tracking systems and all of those kinds of elements. And the sports performance degree course looks at that, kind of comes at that from that angle as well, in terms of the technology that's in use nowadays to track and monitor performance. So keeping going. So BA in physical education. I think I hand to Emma on this one. Emma's going to give me a little wave so I know. Yes, Emma's putting her hand up for this one. So you're not listening to me droning on all night. I'll jump back in again in a minute. I'm going to hand you over to Emma for this one. I'll mute my own and I'll keep charge of the slides here. So here comes Emma.
Thanks, Colin. Thanks, Mill. So I suppose the BA in physical education is obviously slightly more orientated around physical education, whereas the prior degree Colin just spoke about is physical education, but sports science elements too. So you can see in the slide that we do look at personal and professional development. And really that's how you conduct yourself, command a room. I suppose the interpersonal skills that you'll need as a PE teacher. We do applied pedagogy, which is obviously the stages of development in physical literacy. So how we take maybe small kids and some ABCs into, I suppose, physically literate, adolescents. There is physiology, which is, of course, as Colin explained earlier, how the body likes to respond or sometimes doesn't like to respond to exercise. And I suppose the crux of everything is psychology, which it comes into pretty much every career any of us will ever undertake. So that's kind of good there. You'll see that there's research and research designs in this one too. And again, I suppose that's kind of just the thing at university. I think sometimes people get a bit like, I'm not sure why I have to look at research. I want to be a PE teacher. I want to be a physiotherapist. And I suppose the thing about research and research design is when we embark on university and in university, we want to be able to make sure as PE teachers, performance analysts, physiotherapists, that when people come to us and ask us for our advice, we give them the most scientific answer that we can. And that will come from how to research a topic, when to foam roll, when not to foam roll, active band, band activation prior to performance, the new recovery methodologies that are out there, like, are they beneficial? When are they beneficial? And that will come from your ability to research a topic or to research something. So for you to be, the best type of PE teacher, the best type of sports scientist, physiotherapist, it will actually come from the modules around research. They are your foundation of how you engage with your students, your clients, whatever way your career will go. And contemporary issues looks at, are we inclusive? Are we understanding? And do we consider all of our students and all of our clients if we go into practice? In particular with the phys ed, we want to make sure that physical education is inclusive, whether that be in neurodiversity, so dyspraxia, dyslexia, sometimes they can struggle with initial motor coordination and development. Different religions, different socioeconomic backgrounds, they'll have different understandings around gender and exercise and everything else. So can we make all our sessions inclusive? So that's around your contemporary issues. And of course, you'll see your physiology, your biomechanics, and your pedagogy in particular goes throughout the 3 years, because that's your fundamental understanding of how we go from babies who don't know how to move our own limbs to professional athletes. So that's that slide. I'm not sure who's up next, Colin, me or you? Yeah, so
it's still you, Emma.
Still me. Okay, so a level 8 degree that includes 50% physical education content. Okay, a second class honours is achieved. Practical hours achieved in year 2 and 3 within a school setting. Okay, and then you'll need a PGCE, which is 1 year in the UK, or a PME in the University of Limerick, which is 2 years. And then you can become registered with the Teaching Council. I think it's always important to bear in mind that the UK is Northern Ireland. It's not always, over on the plane or the boat. It does include some universities in Northern Ireland. So obviously you have your degree basis here with us in Portobello, and then you need to go on to get a PGCE, which is 1 year, or a PME in the University of Limerick for 2 years, and then you can become registered with the Teaching Council.
So that's back to me, Emma, I think, on this one. So a couple of other, and actually look at the polls, and we'll take this up at the end, but I had a quick look at the polls there while Emma was filling it in. So there seems to be a lot of interest principally in the BA Honours in Physical Education, in the BSc in Sports Therapy, and in the BSc in Sports and Exercise Science. So those three seem to be seem to be our leaders at the moment. But we do offer as well here certificates in higher education PE for two different kind of strands, or two different cohorts, or types of people, I suppose. So the first one is offered to those who've already undertaken a sports related undergraduate degree, and it allows them to top it up with a PE qualification. And then the other one is for people who are not from a sports, don't have a sports undergraduate degree, but are already teaching. So they're already qualified teachers, and this enables them to get a little add-on so they can operate in the area or teach PE as well in their existing career. So those two are options there as well. And then moving on, we're looking at two master's programs. Now, this again is probably a little down the track, and I'm not sure that anybody on the call tonight this is necessarily on your radar as yet. But these are two brand new courses that we're delighted to have had validated recently, and very excited about being able to offer these. Because apart from anything else, it enables us, some of our existing undergraduates who are beginning to move closer to the track, or closer down the track, or closer down to graduation, may have some of these in mind. So a master's in sports performance analysis, so that could lead on from the undergrad in performance analysis, and an MSc in clinical exercise prescription, which would be a nice add-on, or is a nice add-on for any of the sports therapy stream students. So as I say, these are only new courses starting in October this year, and we're very pleased to have them on board. Probably, as I say, not necessarily on your radar here this evening, but nice to know that they're there in the general offering. And this is kind of meet the team. And again, I don't, this is a bit odd, I suppose. There's some of these bios are on the website, and my own bio is up here, and as is Emma's. And I know I find mine a little embarrassing when mine comes up. I don't even like my photo, but never mind. I'll step through them really quickly, and you can dig into these in more detail. But among our sports team is led by Susan Giblin. Susan is very extraordinarily well qualified, very astute, and very well organized. And we find our sports department going from strength to strength, really, in terms of the personnel, and in terms of our students, and in terms of the academic quality of the work that our students undertake. So we're very pleased to have Susan leading the department. We've Barry Rowe, another colleague, delivering on a variety of modules there. So adventure activities, effective coaching, business development, work placement. I think he might be doing a few more. There might be a few more strings to his bow since that was published. We've Anthony Sheriff as well, looking at psychology and pedagogy and skill acquisition on a variety of our programs. There's Emma, sports science research skills, the dissertations, sports psychology, contemporary issues in sport, and other modules principally driven on down the psychology line. Cathal is our lead tutor on the sports therapy programs, and runs his own practice as well. We try, insofar as possible, a lot of the tutors are also practitioners in their field. So we feel that brings an element of reality, if you like, to the teaching, that is not just pure academia. Oh Lord, here I am. So yeah, psychological stuff for me as well, and I do the teaching as well on the sports therapy programs on anatomy and physiology a little bit as well. And there's some of the rest of the team, and we're adding to the team all the time. So our sports department is very much in a growth phase, and we're very pleased about that. And a thank you. So I'll leave that slide up for now. And I'm not sure, I did try while Emma was speaking to see could I figure out how to unmute the participants. I failed miserably in that regard. So I'm afraid it looks like we're stuck with the chat and or the Q&A. So there are two little options on the right. Some of you discovered the chat at the beginning anyway. So we've got chat and we've got Q&A. So you can use either if you've got particular questions. In the meantime, I'm going to see, in addition to maybe answering questions, Emma might be able to help out. Joe sent me a sidebar on an email to say, it popped up on your screen there briefly if you're a very quick reader. Yeah, her mic is not working. So we go with chat. We can all just smile and look happy. But Emma and I are able to speak. and be heard. Unfortunately, Joe is mute for this evening. But far away, guys, kind of over to you, I guess. If you've taken the trouble to log in, we're really pleased to have you, and delighted that you've come on board. So this is your opportunity to ask questions, I guess. You can follow up with email and stuff after the event if you want, but far away in the chat there, I say, I'm sorry, I haven't been able to figure out a way to unmute you, which would be much more organic and easier to deal with, but depends. We've got a few one-finger typists in the room. I'm probably about a four-finger typist myself, but still not very quick. Anna, okay, so Anna, looking for the search for non-sports graduates. Okay, just wondering how the blended learning works. Okay, how often are the in-person days, etc. Yeah, so I can kind of take that because I do a lot of the stuff with the blended learners. So typically the delivery is weekends. There are, I think, from time to time through the year, odd occasions here or there where there might be a midweek element, but it'd be an isolated day here or there. The bulk of the course is delivered on weekends. And we tend to, in all the modules or across all the courses, the way we've operated, and I suppose this kind of grew a little bit out of COVID, and I think this system will probably continue, where we've tried to keep the theory elements or the theory modules or the modules that are largely theory-based have remained online and delivered in an online environment with your classes recorded, so you can revisit them after the event. And then any practical elements, so obviously some of the physical education courses and the sports therapy course and so on will have practical elements to them, and they have to be done in person. So people come into the college for those. But again, in terms of timetabling and so on, we try to arrange those so that when you come in, or if and when you come in, you're in for a full day of practical. And then maybe the following day you're back online. We're trying very hard not to mix and match through different days, that you're not sort of online in the morning and dragged in person in the afternoon. It's not that practical, certainly for people who are not close to the college. Okay, David. So yeah, for the sports therapy course, blended learning, are there mandatory? Okay, right. Yeah, I mean, dates, the timetable is not done yet for 2020, for October 2022. We always try and get it out there nice and early. I don't really have a definitive date for that yet in terms of when those dates will be available to you. How many in-person days? There's a fairly heavy practical element for sports therapy. I don't have a definitive number, but I'd be guessing at least one a month. Something like that. Now, I think people have done this before, and they've flown in for the in-person days, and then they've tackled the rest of it online. So it's potentially doable, but obviously it adds a little bit of extra challenge to your work. I think that's something, David, we may be able to answer more thoroughly for you offline, or maybe if you pop an email to Joe, we could kind of follow up on that a bit more, explore that a bit more with you, and give you more definitive information. What else? Next three are Joe, and David says thank you. So yeah, no, you're welcome. Yeah, keep typing, guys. Sorry you have to type. Apologies for that. It's not the ideal communication method. Enya, okay. So last year in sports science and health, okay, into physical education, but can't. Okay. Will I need to do the add-on course, or does this mean I have to do the full 3-year course? Okay, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, Enya. That's a question really for admissions and maybe our quality department, just to look. We probably need some information from you in terms of the detail behind your existing course to see what level of exemptions and so on that would give you at our end, and whether you can just do the top-up. So I don't know. I'm not going to risk winging an answer to that one. But again, we can follow up with you on that if you can email or it gives the details of the course you're currently pursuing, and we'll look at that in detail for you and respond ASAP. Even if that's what a request for more information or whatever. PE top up for non-sports does include everyone who needs the teaching council for someone who already has a PME. As far as I know, I was just about to say that it is Teaching Council accredited, and then I had a little doubt in my mind. I'm not sure. I don't know, Emma, do you know, or Joe, do you know, do the PG certs grant you, are they accredited by the Teaching Council, or is there a gap there? Do we know?
I can see Joe's typing there. So I'd say Joe is going to get back to the PG cert. And then just on to Peter, they do vary. Yeah, we do have around approximately 30 on the full time, and the blended tends to be a wee bit higher than that because it tends to suit students who are trying to maybe change career paths. So we do tend to have more on the blended learning than we do on the full time. The full time can be anywhere from about 20 to 30 students. And I know Joe is typing, yeah, to get back to the PG cert.
Okay. And then David, how many students go on to do the masters in physio after the sports therapy? Again, it's a little bit tricky to put a definitive number on that. I think the acceptance is pretty high. So those that want to go do it, the acceptance rate, like the pathway, if we've outlined a pathway here, you know, if we've got information that says that your course that you pursue with us grants you an access. So if I go back, actually, my slides are still up here. If I go back, for example, here, where not that one, find the one, this one. Okay, so for example, so we know that UCC will recognize the BSc in sports therapy, as will RCSI, but their master's is 3 years rather than 2 with UCC. UL require a little extra GAMSAT score, so you know a lot of these things differ from university to university, so it's important to check, if you like, if you already know which university you're likely to want to follow it with. But we have had students go on and succeed in getting on master's programs based on their undergraduate through us. But I think a certain number just stop, or we have some people who stop for a while. 3 years is a chunk of study, and sometimes people don't want to dive straight into a master's, so they'll go and they'll develop the career a little bit, develop their private practice perhaps, and then maybe look to go back into a master's program at a later date.
Yeah. Arthur, the difference is a BA is a Bachelor of Arts and a BSc is a Bachelor of Science. They're just two different terminologies. It depends on what sort of umbrella they decide your discipline falls under. It's a little bit more difficult when you look at something like physical education, sports science, physiotherapy. Are they an art more so than a science? That's a different debate. But the predominant difference between the two of them is one stands for a Bachelor of Arts and the other one stands for a Bachelor of Science, if it's just the abbreviation. In terms of the content of the two, the physical education degree is best placed for those who want to pursue a career in PE teaching. And the sports science is somebody who wants really a career in sports, but they're not just overly sure what that might specifically look like. Norris. Oh, let's see the way I picked up on Norris. I said no worries, Arthur, you know. Do we have any more questions, folks?
Yeah, I've been nipping in and out to see can I figure out a way to unmute people, but I'm still coming up empty, unfortunately. This is working reasonably well, actually. Fair to, I'm highly impressed with people's typing skills.
I think it's the actual portal. I think it's the hop-in setting that you need permission to come in. So yeah, I don't think there's actually.
I thought I was set up as a moderator, so I thought I might have permission, if you like, to change that, but I can't see anywhere that I would change it. So not to worry. We're getting there.
Yeah.
Guys, anybody else want to ask anything? Anything else you're curious about while you have us online?
Did we from the poll, what were people predominantly interested in terms of the undergrads?
They were in terms of the courses, it was there's 3, 7, 8 so it's not statistically it's not that significant, but 3 for BA in physical education, 4 for BSc in sports therapy, and 1 for BSc in sports exercise science.
Okay. Yes.
And the blended and full-time was nearly a 50-50 split.
Wow.
5-4 in favor of full-time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think really the decision between the two of them kind of comes down to where you are at the moment. If you think full-time could work for you, and full-time, it's not like a lot of people have this misconception that full-time courses is just going to be made up predominantly of students who've just finished their Leaving Cert. We have a very, very widespread in terms of age and life experience that take on the full-time as they take on the blended. We have students who are just fresh from the Leaving Cert who select blended learning rather than full-time. So it really is kind of where your lifestyle is at the moment. Can you engage in full-time studies, or would blended suit you more? Are the weekly hours different for the two? David, they're not in terms of the amount that's done. What I would say to you is when you're on the blended learning course, a lot of your hours are independent. So you may not be in the lecture hall with a lecturer, but you will be expected to be going over the content and the overlay from your online classes. If it's the physiotherapy the sports therapy that you're interested in, a lot of your weekends are spent with the hands-on practical elements because it's a practical degree. And then the theory bits will be online. They're the same hours. Yours on the blended are just a wee bit more condensed, and there's a little bit more autonomy and independence required. So, you're not going into class, 3-4 days a week. It will be time to read the material outside of what's being delivered at the weekends on blended. So that's the kind of key difference. Hour-wise, they don't differ. It's just one needs a little bit more autonomy than the other because you're not actually sat in front of the lecturer.
Yeah, I suppose I'd chip in on that as well. I mean, just to say that, because of the nature of the way the blended stuff is delivered, you get a much more of a sort of a dump or chunk of information, and new content comes at you over the course of maybe an entire weekend. You will cover a vast amount of stuff, but then you might not see the lecturer for 2 weeks, perhaps, before you come in for another maybe practical class or more theory stuff. The full-time, I guess, is a little bit more spread out. So maybe the chunks are a little smaller and more regular, whereas on the blended, the chunks maybe are larger and maybe a little further apart. But in overall terms, it's the same.
And is that for the sports therapy, David? Yeah? No, unfortunately not. S&C. Would you have a research module? Would you have a statistics module? Yeah, unfortunately that's the crux there, because there's no research methodologies, there's no statistics, just anatomy and physiology. Yeah, I mean, what I would advise, David, maybe is to contact Joanna directly and see. There might be an issue around the statistics and research methodologies, but I know we do some work over the summer for people who may not have that particular module, and there could be a case for direct entry to second year. But I think what I would do is I would contact Joanna directly there when you get a chance.
Yeah, Peter, it seems to answer a lot of questions with the words "it depends." It depends a bit on the course you're pursuing, and then the balance between theory and practical. So sports therapy, for example, is very heavily practical in nature. So there's quite a bit of in-person stuff required for that. Whereas, some of the other ones maybe have a bit more theory, so there's more opportunity to have more of that online. Yeah, so no, I wouldn't think you wouldn't be in every week. I don't think you'd be in every week, but I think I wasn't been entirely sure about the sports therapy commitment on the practical side, but I'd say that's probably once, twice a month, maybe for practical. And I'm thinking there's of roughly like 4 weekends in a month, and be inside for 2 of them and not in for another 2. Appreciate your patience, guys. It is a little tricky, this just been able to type rather than chat. But yeah, if anybody's got any final bits and pieces they want to, Joe's popped that in there. Anybody got any final bits and pieces they want to ask this evening? As I say, there's of course an opportunity to follow up individually.
Okay, thanks very much, folks. Hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, Gavin's just jumped in here really quick. So there's that one completed. Practice. No, I think you're not really supposed to. You're not really qualified to practice and get hands-on with people until you've graduated. You will start to acquire skills throughout the course, of course, but there's some fairly kind of rigorous controls around your scope of practice in terms of what you are qualified to do. And that really depends on actually graduating the course. Sorry, I accidentally stopped sharing the screen there. That wasn't intentional.
Okay. I know Anna was just asking Joe there. Yeah, Anna, that's no hassle at all. If you want to book in for an interview, Joanna would be more than happy to talk you through more details of the course or the modules. Okay, folks, I think that's us. Joanna, if you want to give me a nod, yeah. Grand. Okay, thanks very much, folks. And of course, stay in touch with any one of us or Joanna there if you need more details or to book an interview. And hopefully see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye. 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 Bye.